Colm, good morning to you. Kathleen, welcome.
Good morning.
Shane, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
And for everybody who's still with us after our last item, welcome to you as well. We've had a lot of comments. Colm has described it as dominating
miserable
comments
get,
box
you know
this morning.
Miserable get.
You got to call it like it is. You got to. What does John
It's Friday, like come on.
Tell it like it is.
That's what I'm after doing.
So yeah, the comments have been dominated by lots of things today, including people's lists of the random question that we threw out at the top of the show. Who would you have, current, alive, sports people, globally at your dinner table? 3,
2, 1.
2,
1. Oh, I thought you didn't count them. Right.
Lift off.
Yeah, well, look, we want to turn this into a segment, folks, to end the week, and we want to bring you a topic. So this is the one that we had today, and the comments have been alive. Well, can I just say, your comments have been very good lately, everybody out there.
Yeah.
Keep them coming. Like, there's loads and loads. We like that, because we're going to read them out if they're nice. We'll read them
Makes
out.
our job easier as well.
Yeah.
So please
You can just
keep
talk
them
about
coming.
whatever you
Are
bring
we
up in the
calling
comments.
Genuinely great.
Have
so
you,
thanks for that.
as the producer of the show, so having said all that, I presume you've collated some of them there, have you?
Well, just like yourself, like I have them open here now, but some of the suggestions, you see, the problem is that some of your suggestions out there are actually so good that it does, I fear, going to influence people's decisions here. So again, the criteria, 3 people, 3 sports people, they have to be alive, but they can be retired if you want, so it can be anyone. The camaraderie has to be there, so it's not just your 3 heroes, because there might not be any buzz around the table. You need a bit of that. And who in your mind would pay for the dinner? So,
Oh, I didn't realise that last ring.
yeah, I threw that in
Well, the
there, yeah.
venue, Rogers opened up the whole can of worms about venue.
And where would you have it?
Yeah, it's quite important,
You
I
know?
think. Yeah.
So I think, with the man's talking there, he's in a bit of momentum after Around the World with Hannon. I think we should start with Shane.
Pressure's on here. I've come up with 2 little dinner parties, both a bit different.
You're taking the Ronan O'Gara rules. In
Yeah.
this.
No, I haven't done. What did he do? 8 or 9 or 10? I haven't included my. Oh, sorry. Am I at this dinner as well? Am I the 4th person?
It's you plus 3, because otherwise, what
I'm
is
just going
it?
to organise a dinner for
There's just a camera on it.
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
live stream it just for yourself.
Okay, so I'm at the dinner as well. First pick, Alex Ferguson. Lots to talk about, lots to get into, and while he's still around, I'd like to pick his brain. And I don't
a
mean
little
that.
bit morbid there.
I don't mean that in a morbid sense, but I mean, it's like, when you get the recorder out with your grandparents and you're like, do you know what? Let's get some of these stories down. Alex Ferguson has obviously put his stories into print, into multitude of interviews across the decades, but I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth, to excuse the horse pun, Rock of Gibraltar, etc. I would love to sit down with Alex Ferguson in a dinner setting. I think a couple of glasses of red wine as well.
You better have Roy Keane also at this.
I don't have Roy Keane, because I've thought about the dynamic. I don't want an awkward dinner. I want to enjoy. I want to be leaving that dinner feeling blessed to be alive, and feeling that our place in this universe, floating around in a ball of rock through space, means something. I'd have Rory McIlroy as my second voice at this dinner.
Good shout.
Rory's a Manchester United fan, I'm pretty sure. He is well able to speak his mind. He strikes me as a cultured man, learned on a number of topics, not just golf. I don't want us to sit there for hours and talk about football or Manchester United or golf or Patrick Reed. I want to talk about other things, things that matter in the world. Do they both seem like philosophical gentlemen. I know Alex Ferguson has spoken about Michael Collins and Padraig Pearse and James Connolly and all these Irish patriots. He's a read man, a learned man, and McIlroy strikes me as the same, who would get involved in these conversations. And the fact that he's a United fan as well is my reason for putting him second. Third guest in that particular dinner party is Park Ji-sung. So
now we've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Hold on. Let me clarify this. Park Ji-sung is one of Alex
He'll have a 4th guest, Lee Keegan.
5th Malachy O'Rourke.
We'll get there. But Park Ji-sung was one of Alex Ferguson's favourite players of all time. A workhorse, someone who I think would bring to the dinner party some South Korean cuisine, which I've never tried.
Do they actually have to cook as well?
No, they don't have to cook, but I think he would bring a certain aspect of Asian food to the picture here.
There's more of a potluck or something, is it?
Yeah, potentially. But Park is one of those people who is so pleasant, is so happy with life. He's a happy-go-lucky character. Rory would obviously be in awe of both of these lads. Rory being a Manchester United fan, he'd be in the same boat as me, where we're all kind of fanboying over each other. But I also think Park and Alex Ferguson would appreciate Rory's talents in the world of golf. That's my first 3. My second 3,
What? How many
I've
dinners do you
two-
have?
Let's go around the room first.
yeah, well,
go on.
And if we have
How
time,
many-
like as
I do
Roland
have a
Armour
separate-
points out on YouTube here, Shane's head's gone, and
Head's
I'm
gone.
with you. He
doesn't
started
want
off
this. He
so
doesn't want
well,
this. He's gone.
and then he just
Don't be
took an
jealous.
awful
Don't be jealous. Go on.
trip south.
Yeah.
You're
Kathleen?
driving this, are you?
Yeah.
Good man.
So when I was doing this, it was weird. I found that like managers were coming to my head a lot more. Like some of them were former players as well, but I don't know, there was something about the managerial quality that really stuck out in my head. So my first one was Emma Hayes, Chelsea manager, because I've listened to her talk a few times and I've been to a few like in-house non-media events with her, and she's just so interesting, and I'd love to just sit with, and she's good crack as well, which I enjoy. You know, she'll have a bit of banter.
As Emma Byrne says, she gets the Irish way, doesn't
exactly,
she? So that's,
exactly. And also at the weekend, Liverpool was called off because of the ice, and she offered to buy everyone hot dogs that came to the next match. So dinner would be on her for that sole reason, because I think people costed it up, and it would have cost about 18 grand to buy everyone hot dogs at Kings Meadow. So you know, we were going for the fancy dinner. Then my second one, I was torn in this one. So my two options, was two tennis options, Colm, you'll be happy to hear, was either Billie Jean King or Venus Williams. Because I covered Wimbledon and I was at a few press conferences with Venus Williams, and her humour is so dry, but she's been through so much as well. So I just think she'd have really, really good stories. But then Billie Jean King is just an icon, and I just really want to sit down with her. And actually that one time I covered Wimbledon, I was covering it with my friend Tom Hamilton, and he told me there's a pub in Wimbledon called the Fox and Hound, where a lot of people who cover go, and a lot of the tennis players turn up there too. And he told me the year before, so it was 2020 when I covered it, so it was COVID, everything was a bit weird. He walked into the pub and Billie Jean King was sitting there, and he sat down with her and drank pints all night, and she was great crack. And I was like, can't believe you're telling me this now, because I'm not going to get to see Billie Jean King this year. But yeah, I think I'd probably go with her. And then my third one, I was also torn between either Arteta or Raj.
oh wow.
Yeah.
I just feel like Raj and Emma Hayes would be such an interesting like meeting of like brilliant minds.
I get you're leaning towards Arteta, but he not just bore the arse off you.
Well, I don't know, because
so.
I think people have this perception that Arteta is really boring. But like when you look at a lot of his, like say the videos that came out after the Amazon documentary and any of the clips, like you see him on the sidelines and stuff, and everyone's given off this year that he's like, oh, he's too whatever on the sideline. He looks like he's passionate. He doesn't mind a bit of cursing, a bit of, you know, having crack with people. So yeah, I don't know. I think
Well, you want to talk Arsenal with him anyway, right? So that's
well, that's true. And obviously by this stage we'll have won the Premier League, so you know it'll be a nice celebration. Emma Hayes herself worked at Arsenal before, so you know she could join in. Billie Jean King would just be sitting there happy out.
Yeah.
Billie Jean King's a great shout. I listen to the tennis podcast. There's 3 tennis journalists talk about tennis every week, and one of them has a dog called Billie Jean. Billie Jean King got wind of this, met them, and recorded a podcast with them in their house.
Incredible.
That's the type of people.
Wow.
That's the type of people she is.
Well, so is this our shout out to Billie Jean King? Please come over to Ireland, especially if she's going to Wimbledon this year. Come over, come on the show. We'll bring you out for dinner. You don't have to pay. I'll pay. It's fine.
I was thinking more we need to get a dog called Tom Brady or like
Billie Jean's a great name for a dog. Billie Jean is not my mother.
We do need a dog called Ultimate Running Order, all right? And we get an incredible guest by guest.
Do you
That list is very strong.
I like that list.
Venus
actually.
Williams is a great, I was going to curse her, great shout. She is genuinely, like, she's fascinating. She has this kind of nonchalance about her, doesn't she?
She is like
wise beyond her years.
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily the right comparison, but she has like the same sort of quality as someone like Eddie Jones has, in the sense that she doesn't care. If you ask her a question and she doesn't care for it, she will tell you she doesn't care for it. And there was so many times in the press conferences with her where she was asking, and to be fair, they weren't great questions, and she was just looking at the person and she wouldn't say anything. She'd just look at them until someone else asked a question or the moderator tried to move it on quickly, which is fair enough. I mean, she's been through so much, especially with different parts of the media over her career, and she's had to put up with a lot. So if I was in her position, I totally understand why you'd just be like, I couldn't care less about your stupid questions anymore.
If you were in that situation with Venus Williams and you asked her a question that she didn't care for, would you prefer that approach where it's just silence and staring, or why did you ask me that question?
Oh, I think probably silence and staring, because if they ask you why did you ask that question, you actually have to respond and give a decent answer. I don't know if I'd be like smart enough to come up with something in the moment, or else if I would just be like, I'm sorry, Venus, I love you.
Yeah.
Like I've had it before when I've been in press conferences and like you ask Mourinho or something a question and you can just feel the eyes staring back at you, and it feels like it's about 10 minutes. It's probably only like 5 seconds, but you're just like, oh no, what's he going to say? Yeah. Eddie Jones was the same. He was particularly terrifying because he'd take down like a couple of journalists just before you, and then it'd be your turn up next, and you're like, is my question stupid? Someone actually just asked my question, so it's all fine.
And tell me this, do you have a favourite interviewee in the press conferences that you've covered? Or a surprise one maybe, actually, that you didn't expect to be so giving?
That's a good question, actually. No, I've probably had it definitely outside of press conferences more than in press conferences, because like the answers are generally quite quick and the questions tend to be quite formulaic. Emma Hayes is good because generally you can get a bit of crack out of her, or she'll just come up with some like ridiculous analogy for something and everyone's sitting there scratching their heads going, is she actually being serious, or is she pulling her leg with this whole thing? But yeah, I think a lot of the time the people who surprise me more are like, if you're interviewing like say family members or something of a sports person and you just get a really good interview. Like there's a special interview coming out soon that I was over in Bristol filming for, and we were talking to an Irish player's mum, and she was just so articulate, so passionate about her kid, and like I enjoy those sort of things probably more than the press conferences, because you know that's where sports people get their passion from. That's the atmosphere they were bred in.
I like those picks.
Yeah, that's strong. Adrian, all up against you here now after that. Two very wildly different choices. Wildly different choices.
I haven't had much time to think about this. You sort of
You've the same amount of time as everyone else did.
I know, but like you're sort of involved in like not being able to take her eye off the ball for the last.
I'd say Adrian probably wants to pick 16 guests, and even though
I don't really, and I would like to give him more time. I will say that, but I did take her casting thing slightly seriously in that like I just wanted to make sure that there was like a good dynamic around the room.
Yeah, that's important.
So I went for Kelly Harrington because I think she's a bit of a buzzer, and I think there isn't, you made a point about the awkward conversation. You don't need to be like, you know the way sometimes you're like, oh, I have to spend a bit of time now in the car with this person, or I have to spend a bit of time with, you know, somebody you're not sure, so you put a bit of advanced thought into talking points, your own little talking points, the internal monologue.
Proper journalist.
I'm putting it out there now, and the assumption that everybody else does this, right? And yeah, so but I don't think you'd need to think about that too deeply, because I think Kelly'd have you covered. I think there's not going to be any awkward silence.
Yeah.
And even if that happens, she's going to be the one that goes, she points at it, and we have all a bit of crack about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's a legend, so we'll go with Kelly Harrington. I'm going to go with Pep Guardiola.
Ooh.
Because I think that he'd bring something totally different to the party. He'd be obviously a man of more years, more experience, very different career path. Kind of great chat about the Premier League, great chat about the heady days of Barcelona, all the great players he's managed. He's also a way more intense character. So I think there'll be a nice bit of a vibe there. I think they'd actually get on.
I was going to say, I'd love to know how they would interact with each other, or like what they would talk about.
And then the last character I have in there would be Shane Lowry, because I think that
that's strong.
I think again, I think that like there's a bit of crack going on. He seems very interested in other people. So I think that he'd be like peppering Pep with a few good questions. He'd have plenty to ask about Kelly and get involved in the conversation. So that's kind of what I think. There'd be a load of sort of first reserves. I was thinking about like Paul O'Donovan would be a really interesting, quirky, different person to have. Ruisha Littlejohn.
Colm's got it over there.
Absolutely.
I had Ruisha as someone that would be great.
She'd just be crack.
Yeah.
So I think she has to be consideration. And Gary O'Toole is... I've made this point before, but as soon as we get our act together as a country and come up with some sort of a proper national award system from a sports point of view, he's top of the list of people who need to be selected, elected, whatever you're having yourself.
What about Mal O'Kelly? You're a big fan, aren't you?
I'd always have Big Mal, yeah. Big Mal is a given. So apart from Roy Keane, who are your other two?
I'm getting texts here from people that I know who are trying to preempt my shouts, you know.
One of them is fairly obvious.
Is number one.
No, come on now. Do you know, I was humming high over this now, but I'm going to go with the following, right? And relax, Willie, when I say this. Just relax.
Well, there's going to be Cork names left, right and centre here.
Just relax.
You know, you've got a global... Imagine having a global pick.
You can't pick 3 Cork
and
names.
You're just going with people...
You can't even pick 2, really, can you?
It's 9:34 AM. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette Labs. For an effortless finish to your day. We're nearly finished now. I am not... Paul O'Donovan shout was great.
Have you not decided?
I did what I did, but that's got my way now. Right, so I'm going to go for Brazilian Ronaldo.
Okay.
Famously not from Cork.
He's so charismatic, like this guy. Have you seen the Ronaldo documentary?
Yeah, brilliant.
Phenomenon. And he is like surprisingly like amazing English for a guy who doesn't really have any reason to. Jar interviewed him at the Web Summit a few years ago, and I think that interview, a photo of it is Jar's cover photo on Twitter. And Jar wouldn't be one, as he said to you, to like get in there with the people he interviews.
Fanboy.
But he loved them so much. And then if you ever listen to him at all, he just has this kind of lust for life and just wants to have as good a time as possible for the time he's here, and then at the same time achieve as much as he can. So like him as a footballer, him coming back from 98 to 2002, like I could listen to him all night talk about that during dinner. And then the fact that he goes into club ownership, which is such an unusual thing for a player to do, not like coaching, not media work, but I'll own a club instead. So there's these two sides to Ronaldo. So he has this reputation for like he loves a good time and he's always out and about, but I imagine owning a club is incredibly stressful. So straight away I could just have a one-on-one with Ronaldo and talk endlessly to him about how amazing he was when he came on the scene so young. That time between 98 and 02, and like one of the attributes that Ronaldo wouldn't necessarily be associated with is his work ethic and ability to come back.
He doesn't want to talk about football. He's out for dinner, Colm.
I would have concern.
No. You talk about that and then you move on to life stuff. And he has this smile about him that suggests like there's a glint in the eye and he's like, whatever you want to talk about, I'm happy to talk about.
You're definitely a talking points man as well. You'd nearly actually have them, it's an agenda written.
No, I wouldn't. I'd actually be the complete opposite. And
I'd also be concerned that they wouldn't get a word in edgeways.
Not at all. Why should they have no interest now in
pot kettle? The two lads here, yeah.
I just want to, I just want to hear from Ronaldo, right? So that's one. The other one I want is Goran Ivanisevic, the 2001 Wimbledon final winner, and he had a great quote the morning of that final. I wouldn't mind putting my racket away if God let me win today. He had lost 3 previous Wimbledon finals, but his post-match speech in Wimbledon after beating Pat Rafter in that final was almost as good as the win itself. He's so naturally funny and again charismatic. And again, I think with Ivanisevic, he's a fascinating career. So that's the backlog conversation, that if you want to fall back on that, you can talk about his career. But again, with him, like Ronaldo, there's something more to him. He has more of an interest in life. From Croatia, tough background, but wants to talk about other things. Big football fan. His last appearance at Wimbledon 2004, he lost to Leighton Hewitt, ripped off his shirt, put on a Croatia jersey, because Croatia were playing England that night of Euro 2004, and instead of goading the crowd. You could get up to all sorts of Goran.
Lovely.
The thing I liked about these two choices, right, dinner will finish at 9 or 10.
Would it go on, would it?
What do you want to do now? Those two boys would be well up for a night
The thing
out.
I liked about my first two choices, he's literally just said there.
That, well, yeah, as I realise it. And then the last one, I have a split decision, because I've already had one tennis. I was going to have Monica Seles because of what happened to her and then how brilliant she was, and she's one of my first I suppose sporting icons growing up, because my mother was like obsessed with tennis, and so it was always on in the house, and she's a brilliant talker about what happened to her, but also her interest after tennis and what she did. So I was really close to picking her, but I said for the dynamic.
You can't have two tennis players, yeah, go on. You can't.
The dynamic, I'm going to go for US golfer Boo Weekley.
Boo Weekley be proud of me there, as G-Max says.
Boo Weekley. He played 2008 Ryder Cup when America won. I think that was the Faldo year. And he hit a great tee shot off the 18 green, and he started riding the club down like a horse, because he's kind of like a cowboy type figure. And he famously has very little interest in golf, but is just very good at it. And every time I hear this guy in a press conference or interview, he doesn't really play anymore, but this is like going back. And again, he's retired, so it's a kind of interesting retrospective view on things.
I didn't expect that from you.
And he talks, and he is so fascinating about golf. He's like, I just play it because it pays me well, but really all I want to do is be at home and go fishing. So again, you have the golf, you have the Ryder Cup victory that he was central to, but if you want to get off the sport, you get on to life.
And you can make it a regular dinner. You can have it every 7 days with him as well.
Well, I don't think
tell you could have a dinner with Boo Weekley whenever you want.
Certainly weekly anyway.
whatever you're thinking.
Yeah, Boo monthly maybe. But we could have that, Ronaldo, Goran Ivanisevic, Boo Weekley, where are we off to next? And I think you get great value for money in that night out, because it's not just the dinner. Could be drinks afterwards.
So use of all, I'm embarrassed now because you've taken it so seriously. I should say my actual three, my serious three, is Ronnie O'Sullivan, Ciara McGeehan and Damien Brown.
Ciara McGeehan's actually a good shout.
That's my three, because Ronnie O'Sullivan loves running, and athletics, so he'd have great chats with Ciara. And then Damien Brown, we'd all be talking to Damien Brown of across the Atlantic in that boat. So that's my actual, if I'm being serious and honest.
It's very deep conversation.
With Damien.
Yeah.
100%. But I love it. Because Ciara and Ronnie would show an interest. And there's a bit of cheek out of Ronnie O'Sullivan as well, so you'd have the bit of back and forth.
3's a harsh number, isn't it?
Tough.
Albie Littlewood says Roddy Collins all the way. It's a very good shout.
Yeah, I don't think you need anybody else if you have Roddy. That's the thing.
Rog was a great pick. I guess we just don't think of Rog because we were lucky enough to chat to him regularly enough.
Well, see, that's the thing, that I had that in my mind as well, but I was also like, I just imagine him and Emma Hayes sitting down together, and I just feel like the conversations about managing people would just be so interesting, and the sort of thing you could join in on slightly and be like,
it's like,
tell me more.
100%. The stories some of these people have. I went for dinner in Vegas with Gene Kilroy, Muhammad Ali's manager, during last summer, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, this man, the stories he was telling, like about meeting Elvis and stuff and crazy stuff. And at one point he gets a phone call during the thing. He's like, "Who's this?" And he eventually materialises when he's off the phone. It was Willie Nelson's daughter, Amy, and Willie was in the background. Willie was in the background, and I was like, "This is insanity."
Insane.
Class.
You know, but just people who have stories would be a great dinner party guest. Needless to say.
Shame now we've run out of time. Good.
But we'll be back next week.
We gotta go.
What is it called? Friday Firepit?
Friday
Firepit Fridays.
So we just put a bit more thought into the next.
Rory Larmer said Boo Week Weekly, which is good. After Boo Weekly.
Oh,
Very
Big
good.
Weekly.
But I don't have people myself.
That was a left
I
field
liked it though.
slash odd call.
The
Boo Weekly.
That was bizarre.
Very bizarre.
I
didn't want to say
honestly,
it, but no, you're
honestly,
right.
watch the interviews back. Like, you know, honestly, I'm not. I'm very proud of that.
No,
choice.
definitely, that'll be
very proud of that.
Jesus,
choice,
Colm, I
like.
did not expect
Big plan
that.
for the weekend
Listen,
now.
look, honestly, your plan sorted.
You could pick any live sports person in the world and you'll choose Boo Weekly.
Camaraderie.
We leave it there,
Camaraderie.
Thanks a million for coming in, folks, for the Friday Fire Pit. It was an interesting debut for the item, and we'll see where it goes from